Okay, we will mention something about the vaccines. Now there is supposed to be misinformation about the triple vaccines, right? MMR vaccine and the DTP vaccines and things like that. These are older vaccines. They are relatively safe. Okay? Vaccines always have negative effects. It might affect 1 in million or 3 in million or something like that. But if you take the RNA vaccines, now Fauci's diary has come out, and one of the things which has come to light is that if you take the RNA vaccine, you might be subjected to miscarriage. So if you are planning to get pregnant, you have to do your own research. Even these vaccines, measles, mumps and rubella vaccine and DTP vaccine, right? That is diphtheria, tetanus and whooping cough vaccine. You have to do your own research, but there are always negative sides of it. And what happens is the positive side is more overwhelmingly more beneficial, so you neglect the negative sides. So these are about the vaccine. Now we go back to the real topic that is financial crisis in the West. Right? There is a crisis in the Western financial system. Now, if you take Japan had a period of about 20-30 years, low inflation. So what they did was they borrowed yen at very low interest, and they invested that in America. That is known as the carry trade. Now, especially after the Gulf, the petroleum things were disrupted because Japan takes 90% of the petroleum for the Gulf states. So the inflation has increased. That means Japan has to increase their interest rates. That means some of the money invested in America has to come back to Japan. Right? So America is trying to manage that. They are trying to release yen, some of the yen at their own discretion, because America doesn't want Japan to increase its interest rates, right? But if the Japanese currency falls away, then Japan will have to increase interest rates. So they are releasing money under a managed system, but it will not work. Now, when it comes to Britain wants to join the EU again, but if you take Yanis Varoufakis, he says that EU is a debtor institution and Britain joining the EU doesn't help much. And when Britain left the EU, their trade with Europe has reduced. So that export-import trade has reduced. So Britain has used export-import with other nations. That is what I am saying, not Yanis is saying. So that means Britain has had some benefits during the moving away from the EU, because it has gained some of the national sovereignty. But as far as the per capita income in Britain, it has, it could have grown more, but it would be at the expense of taking more loans, right? So, according to Yanis Varoufakis, that EU is also in a crisis because it had printed a lot of money, right? So now we will go into a little bit of steady state economics. Now you have these two books, Limits to Growth in 1972. I mentioned this earlier. Donella H. Meadows, Dennis L. Meadows, Jorgen Randers and William B. I can't pronounce his name. Berenes, BEHRENS 3, and then you had, that is in 1972. In 2002 you had 30-year update. Then that is about limits to growth, Okay. Then we have this person called Emeritus Professor in Peter Victor of York University in Canada. One of his books is Enough Managing Without Growth. This is an important book. And other is Enough is Enough. So this is mainly to do with steady state economics. So he advocates managing without growth, but that means he is a very complicated thing. He has run many computer programs on this. Managing growth has certain things. It has to change the tax structure so that the people at the bottom, people who have lower income, will get tax benefits and you will be having more. So that's one of the features of managing without growth is that you have to change the tax structure so that it favors the poor people. So we talked about limits to growth, and the leading person was that in that Donella Meadows, and then I mentioned about W. Berens. I may be pronouncing his name. He was charged in the program related to this limits to growth. So if you are interested in managing without growth, you can. This is about Canada. It's about Peter Victor, right? And he has a website. So 2 books I mentioned again: Enough is Enough and Managing Without Growth. Now Iran has gone on the offensive. The Iran crisis starts with 1953. What this Western country says that Iran is a warmonger or something, it's not true. Right? Iran crisis starts with overthrowing Mossad in 1953, democratically elected Prime Minister in Iran. So what the West says about Iran is not true. Now Iran has started attacking Israel today. Iran attacked all the American bases, now it is attacking them. Why Iran is attacking? Because they don't want to have war in another 8 or 10 months' time. So they want to degrade the American military system. Now when Iran attacks, when this war goes on, it has a severe strain on the Western financial system. Now China and Russia wants to open up the straits because they want to keep this. They are ambiguous. They want to get rid of the Western system also, but they want to keep the trading system. So you can't have that. You can't have a cake and eat. So that means this financial system, the Western financial system, has to be taken apart, and you have to go to a new system which is based on steady state economics. So I think China and Russia wants Iran to negotiate with the Americans, but Russia knows that you can't negotiate with Donald Trump. So I think Iran is fighting now so that they want to stop this war happening in another 5-6 months' time. So they want to destroy the capacity of the Western countries to wage war on Iran. So Iran is not the warmongering state. It is the Western countries who are mainly responsible for this. Iran has suffered from, in a way, you can say, from 1953. Not the Iranian Revolution. Iranian Revolution came after that, right? So that is it. Now we have this tropic theory of money, right? You have the producers at the bottom, primary consumers, secondary consumers are services. Now I label the financial sector as predate economics, but steady state economics doesn't use that because that word is a little bit maybe offensive to some people. When I want to label something, I can be very caustic. So I don't, that's something I label. So if you use financial system, this financial system has to go. Otherwise we will not get out of this, right? So there is a possibility because of this war, because of the Iranian war, Iranian has initiated the war, the Western financial system will be highly, it will be highly stressed, and there will be a recession or depression. So that means you will have new financial system, and Chinese are trying to move the metal exchange and things away from from West, and it is also has built this bridge and keeps and things like that. So they can survive without the dollar system. Now Iran is going to face severe economic sanctions, but Iran has opened routes with China and Pakistan. So there are overland routes. They can do their trade. So I think there are few people in Iran, in Russia, still want to negotiate with Donald Trump, but most of these people realize that you can't negotiate with Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is a real bad situation. He is contributing to the destruction of the Western financial system, right? So we talked a little bit on a very important person, Peter Victor of York University, Canada. He is a person who promotes, and he has a lot of books written on it, and some of these books are available e-books, and some of them may be free. The Limits to Growth is also available, e-books. Okay. So now, what about Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka has about $40 billion in under-invoicing, over-invoicing, and fake invoices. So this government could attack that line of thought, because Ranil Wickremesinghe, he used to worship he used to promote this neoliberalism. So he would never attack this under-invoicing, over-invoicing, fake. But this government could take on, and it is estimated that something like $40 billion are in Western countries. So it will be a long, hard struggle. But there is a possibility that, besides all that, there is a possibility that the Western financial system is at a breaking point. So we might escape this repayment of loans, and because Ranil Wickremesinghe has mentioned about the repayment of loans, but then we have other option. We can look at this under-invoicing and over-invoicing thing. Now, Europe, American dollar is losing value, right? Some of the investments are going into Europe, because Europe is thinking that they can build an independent system, and mainly because of these tariffs and things like that. So American dollar is being attacked by Europe and also by Japan, because Japan yen is soaring. I don't think Japanese want to have a confrontation with the Americans, but because of the yen value is falling apart, they have to attack the investments in America. Or you have to increase the interest rates in America. If the interest rates in America is increased, then the Americans also will have to increase the interest rates. Otherwise, there will be a leakage of dollars into euro and also the yen. So the Japanese crisis will be a problem for the Americans. So the yen, the euro and dollar, there is a crisis. There is a crisis in the financial system, because there was a lot of money printed, and the interest rates were kept artificially low. So why these dollars were printed? Because you have something called the Cantillonian effect, where you can direct that money towards your favorites. But if the interest rates go up, then some of the firms, especially in the AI sector, they have borrowed a lot of money, and there will be large amounts of bankruptcy in American AI sector, right? So the Iranian war is making a huge stress on the American financial sector. I think Iran is not looking at the American financial sector per se. They want to avoid wars in the future. So it is the Western country, it is British and the Americans who were instrumental in 1953, the crisis in 1953 where the Iranian Prime Minister was overthrown. And the Americans are trying to show that, the Western countries are trying to show that Iran is a warmonger. No, Iran is fighting for its existence. I think Iran has gone into offensive mode. Earlier it was in defensive mode, and it is reported that Iran has attacked today Israel. So that means Iran is expecting America and Israel to hit Iran. That's why they took the preemptive strike and they hit it at Israel. So I think the West is a little bit surprised, because West is thinking that, especially America is thinking that Iran is in a defensive mode. No, it is in offensive mode. But why the Iran? I am going to stress again that why they are doing this offensive mode, because they don't want to prolong this war. So when the West says that Iran is a warmonger, that's not true. They are distraught in the fact you have to go to 1953. Okay, so you have the yen, you have the euro, and you have the American dollar. There is some crisis between these things because they have printed a lot of money. My understanding is that Britain joining EU, they think that they can. Britain thinks that they can put some. They can influence. They can influence Russia. They can put pressure on Russia. But then they have the American saying, keep the Russians out, keep the Germans down, and keep the Americans in Europe, because America wants to dominate Europe, and that's one of the reasons why this Ukraine war is there, because America wants to break up Russia, and they also want to have this American hegemonism, and Europe is considered to be the vastest states of America. Either Europe can have some kind of understanding into Europe, and they can reduce the American domination in Europe. Now, when Nord Stream pipeline was destroyed, the Europeans said that it was done by the Americans, by Russians, but now it is accepted that it was done by the Americans and possibly the Ukrainians, so to take away the Europe away from Russia and make Europe more dependent on America. So my understanding is that Britain going to Europe will suffer more, but their per capita income might increase because printing of more money. But if the Western financial system is in crisis, money has no meaning, and it will come to dollars and silver, and you have to override the paper gold and paper silver, or what I would call dollar derivatives and silver derivatives. They have to overcome this. So my understanding is that Sri Lanka can overcome this crisis if you if you take control of this under-invoicing originally, and almost that my understanding is there will be a severe crisis in the the financial system in the West, where the crisis might start from Japan, right? Because Japan, a lot of yen is invested in America. If there is a crisis in Japan, the crisis will move fast to America. So America is in real bad shape. If America has to fight Japan, then American financial system will be even more stressed. So my My prediction is that within the next year or so, within the next 9 months or a year, there will be a crisis in the American Western financial system. It can be even the next month. Okay, so you can watch out for that. And Iran is contributing to this financial system because of its offensive nature, and Iran wants to degrade the Western, not necessarily the Western financial system. America wants to put more sanctions on Iran. That means Iran will go more towards Russia and China, and they will stop using the American dollar. So American sanctions on Iran will be less effective. So I think Iran by his action, right? Because it is an extensionist war, that is he wants to it doesn't want to fight anymore. So don't accept this what the Western countries are saying, to label Iran as the aggressor or something like that. They are fighting for his life, and I think Iran in war will contribute to the destruction of the Western financial system. Whether the crisis will start in Japan or Europe or in America, most likely it's going to start from Japan.